disputes authorities. Industrial dispute is nothing but it is a dispute or a difference which is arising between employers and employers, or it could be between employers and workmen, or in between the workers and workers. So this term industrial dispute is nothing but there is a friction over, so there is some misunderstanding or there are some conflicts of interest between. So when there is a conflict of interest, there is a difference of opinion between employers and employers, employers and workmen, or workmen and workmen, then that may be the friction may be or disinterest, or there is a dispute between. So in that case the dispute can be because of the employment or not related to employment. In such case, it can be also related to the terms of employment or the conditions of labor person. So that is the reason why industrial disputes do arise in industries. So the things which we have to take into consideration when there is a dispute, that is, there should be a real and substantial dispute or difference between these people, and that particular dispute should be a dispute or there should be a difference. So this dispute or difference is within the organization or outside the organization, but between the workman and the employer, or between the laborers due to the conditions of their labor. So these are the reasons why there is a dispute. So the authorities under Dispute Act 1947 is Works Committee, then Conciliation Officers, Board of Conciliation, Court of Inquiry, Labour Courts, Tribunals and National Tribunals. So when there is a dispute and that particular dispute has been settled, so this dispute cannot be continued. So in order to settle these disputes, we have 7 authorities under this act. So first one is Works Committee, Conciliation Officer, Boards of Conciliation, Court of Inquiry, Labour Courts, Tribunal and National Tribunal. Now first we will talk about unfair labour practices. Why these disputes are being arising, or what is called as unfair labour practices. So unfair labour practices is nothing but when there is some issues with respect to employers, that is they are discharging or dismissing the employees. So why they are doing it, that is in the form of victimizing them. So something they have not done it, but still they are victimizing those employees and dismissing or discharging them, and that is not done in a good faith, but just to color the exercise, that is the rights of the employers. So employer says, yeah, I have the right, so in that way I am just sending you out. Or sometimes they are falsely implicating an employee with respect to some cases like criminal cases, and they are creating some false evidence or concocted evidence, so to make them as a prey for that particular case, that is with respect to intention is not good, or patently false reasons. So they create some reasons and say this is the reason, this is why we are sending out. The reason could not be really fair in such case also, or untrue or trumped allegations. See, they are there on leave, but without leave. In such case they are trying to do something, some allegations without their knowledge has been created, or in regard to disregard of the principles of natural justice. We know the natural justice. So we have to consider the employees. Sometimes if there is any issues there, we have to call for the inquiry, but with the haste or not taking the proper steps or doing some undue influence over the employee. In such case, that is also called as an unfair labor practices, or they are doing some misconduct or minor or technical character without having any regard to the nature of the past record of service. So shockingly, this also has a disappropriate punishment for the particular employee. So these are called as the unfair practices. Now we will see who is a counseling officer. So as I told you, counseling officer is one of the main things. So under section 2D, consultation officer means he is a consultation officer who is appointed under the Industrial Disputes Act 1942. Now we will see how they are being appointed and what is the role they are doing in the particular employment. So this is very important. We have to take a note of it, what they do in the mechanism. So consultation officer, what they do is they are acting as a part of it. so they are being appointed. So appointed by the specified area or for a specific industries, or they can even be conciliation officer for one or more industries. So they are government representative. So they are, how they are being there is they are acting on part of the government in order to settle down these disputes, or they are there to solve or inquire into these disputes. So what their role is, they are acting as a mediator. So his duty is to mediate between the parties. So the parties here can be workman, or employers and employee, or employer and employee. In such case, they try to bring out a mediation and they try to conciliation of the dispute. So in order to settle the disputes, so that is the reason why conciliation officers are being appointed, and the main duty is to look into administrative and not judicial. So they are not acting on the power as a judicial officers, they are acting as an administrative officers, and they don't have any power in order to impose any orders. They are just like a mediator. They want to settle down the issues at the starting level itself. So they don't have any power in order to issue some orders or something like that. And they may be, as I told you, they may be appointed for a specific area also, or for specific industries, or they can be permanently appointed for a limited. So this is how they are being there. As I told you, these issues are being done because of the unfair labor practices. So for your understanding, I have listed down some unfair labor practices which is against the unions of workmen. So how it is, they are supporting and instigating illegal strikes. So we have seen a lot of examples with respect to supporting illegal strikes or instigating illegal strikes. So nowadays there are a lot of reasons why people, public are also against strikes, because often we hear such strikes, but in industries they try to instigate a strike which has no reasons at all, then forcing workmen to join a union, then picketing or obstructing or threatening non-striking workmen. So if a workman does not indulge himself strike, that is they are making him, if you don't do, we will do like this, or we will be doing. So some threatening force or influence is being used over there, or refusing to participate in collective bargaining strategy, or indulging in post-law or spectating movement, that is we know how they are viewing us. Then demonstration at residence of employer, just they are calling for a demonstration in front of the employer, it can be in front of his house residence, or they are trying to cause some damage to the property of the employer. So these are the unfair labor practices which is done by the union, listed against unions or workmen. So the worker or union, they themselves instigate such of the things which is not warranted of a worker. Now the duties of the conciliation officer. So if something like this has happened, now this conciliation officer, what should he do? First, the reason is he has to settle down the disputes. So that disputes should be related to the public utility service. So somebody is throwing a stone on a public bus, or they are setting fire to the train. So these are the things which are unwarranted and causes some loss to the public utility services. So they have to send a notice under section 22 and hold conciliating proceedings. They have prescribed the manner how that has to be done. So this conciliation officer, in order to bring a settlement of the dispute without any delay, they have to investigate why the dispute has arisen. What are the matters which is affecting the settlement? So they have to find out. So in order to have a better settlement, they have to call for all the things which are having a possibility in order to fit and make a settlement in a better way. So they have to find out the reasons, so the purpose why this has happened. So what is the root cause for this? All these things has to be well investigated by the conciliation officer, and they have to see the purpose of inducing these parties, why there is a such thing, and they have to bring a fair and a friendly settlement for this dispute. That is the role they are paid, and that is the and so these duties are being given in a better form so that we can understand in a better way. So it is an immediate investigation. So they take, as I told you, they are the first things they are coming into the role. So they try to immediately investigate why the dispute has arisen, and at the beginning stage itself they try to settle the dispute, and he or she can investigate the dispute and find out the matters. So what are the matters which are affecting the merits, and what are the right of settlement, so how to go, and this conciliation officer can even visit the industry. So there is no obstruction on his visit. So without even intimating or sending a notice, they can go for investigating the thing, or they can even go for an inquiry about the incident, or even call for the documents. So they can even get the evidential documents which are supporting or which are in the favor of this, which are in order to settle down these disputes. So in case of settlement, if they come to the settlement, these officers can, they have to send a report. So the report, what they do is they will just list down what all the things has happened, what is the root cause for it, how that has been settled, and all these are sent in a report form, which has to be sent to the appropriate authority. That is appropriate here authority can be the central government or the state government based on the need arising or this appointment and jurisdictions, and they send a report, and that report should be signed. That is very important. So he has to list down the points how the dispute has been settled, and that should be signed by the party. So there should be a mutual settlement, that is an amicable settlement between the parties, and that should be signed by the conciliation officer, that is, and both the parties who are on the dispute should sign in his presence, so that that becomes an evidential document. And this conciliation officer, what they do was they submit the report. This report is being submitted within 14 days of the commencement of the conciliation. So from the date of starting this conciliation, the report has to be sent before, that is after 14 days, on the 14th day, or they sometimes even give a shorter duration. So that is depending upon the nature of the dispute. So if the dispute is very much or very meager and it is not much needing much time, then they can give a shorter period, or they give a 14 days thing based on the nature of the settlement. Then the Board of Conciliations. So this Board of Conciliation, as we know, this is being appointed so by this appropriate government, and they are being appointed by the official notification in the official gazette. And this board is main reason why they are there is they are going to promote the settlement of an industrial dispute. So that is under section 5 subsection 1. So this board is being appointed by the appropriate government, and they have to give their name in the official gazette has been published. And this board has a chairman, so they have 2 or 4 other members. So this is being also decided by the appropriate government under section 5(2). So this chairman, what they do is he is an independent person. This particular person is the chairman, is an independent person. And what about the other members? These members are being appointed in the equal representation by the parties of the dispute. So how many parties are there on the disputes? Based on that, equal weightage is being given for the dispute settlement. Based on that, they are going to give. So the person who is appointed to represent a party should be recommended by that particular party. So there is a party to the industry dispute, and those parties, they make a representation from their side as a one person as a member in this particular Board of Conciliation. This is in order to have a proper settlement and proper representation also. So this board, what they do is they have to have some quorum, and this quorum is also based on the vacancy of its members numbers. And if the appropriate member notifies that the board is doing the service of the chairman or the member, then they are not there, then this board will have new member or chairman. So this is also based on the quorum of the Board of Conciliations. And this particular person, Board of Conciliation, if they are not able to come into a settlement, or they are failing to resolve the difference between the parties, then the government will have the discretion so to appoint the board of conciliation. So we know when the conciliation officers, they have to bring into a settlement between both the parties, and that should be signed and report has to be sent. If that is not possible, then the particular matter is being passed on to the board of conciliation. So as I told you, it consists of chairman and 4 members, and this also has to send a report. This board also sent a report within 2 months of the date of. So from the date of this transfer of this particular dispute to the board of conciliation, within 2 months they have to send a report. And in case if the government feels yes there is a need for another extension of period, then they can give 2 months for the. And this is the definition what has been specified for the conciliation officer and board of conciliation. So as I told you, this conciliation officer under section 4, they are acting as a mediating and they are trying to promote and settle the industry disputes. And this conciliation officer, they are appointed under the specified area for a specified industry and in specific region, and their appointment can be permanent or temporary based on the nature and the type of industries in the particular area. Then this board of conciliation is the next step from the conciliation officers, and their role is also similar to conciliation officers, and they also try to settle down the disputes. And this consists of 2 or 4 members, and they have a chairman, and they have equal representations from the from the parties who are on the dispute side, and they also has to send a report within 2 months, and if there is a need they can follow for 8 months. So these are with respect to board of conciliation. As I told you, they are being appointed by the official gazette, and we have 2 to 4 member, and we have a chairman who is an independent person, and all the other members are being equal importance and equal representation from the parties of the dispute, and these persons are appointed only in order to make a representation from the parties who are the appointed on the recommendation of the party. That is here this party refers to the industrial dispute party, and if the appropriate government thinks fit, then they can fail to make a recommendation. So within the prescribed time, then the board of conciliation can act only when a dispute is referred. So if there is a dispute referred, then only then board of conciliation comes on place. Now the duties of this board of conciliation has been specified under section 13. So if there is no settlement is arrived, then the board can practically after the close of the investigation send a report to the appropriate government. So they are sending a full report, and this report is to set forth and what are the steps which has been taken by the board. So in order to find out the facts and circumstances which are causing the industrial disputes, and in order to bring a better settlement for the dispute. And also they have to find out what are the facts and findings and the reasons on its opinion. So what could be why the settlement cannot be arranged. So they have to specify the facts, what all the facts they have found in the case, and their findings and the representations and the interpretations, all these things, and they have to specify this is the reason. Because of this reason we are not able to find out a settlement or come into a conclusion. Then this board also what they do is they make a recommendations. So this recommendation is made to the appropriate government. So in order to find out further actions for the particular industrial disputes. That is with respect to subsequent. Now when is this conciliation proceeding starting? That is section 62 refers here. So the conciliation proceedings can start when one or for other parties, so they are making a written request. So they are making a request to state that there is a reason for a dispute, and dispute has been identified, and please try to consolidate this dispute, or they can only start if both the parties accept or they give an invitation to conciliate. If that is not there, they give a written acceptance and conciliation cannot commence. So other party does not reply within 30 days, the offer for conciliation can be treated as rejected. This is very, very important. So both the parties has to come for conciliation. Only one party turns it, and another party having getting the written communication does not turn back within 30 days, and the offer for conciliation has to be treated as reject. Now the process of conciliation, so first one is they are going for a meeting and two dispute parties. So here we are taking it as a two dispute party for example, and with the possible representation they meet a conciliation officer. Then as a statement, each party they try to represent their views and opinions and arguments and evidences. So that becomes a base and that becomes a fact. Then the conciliator, what they does is they give the suggestions. So how this problem can be resolved, how this dispute can be resolved. But they does not force the parties to reach an agreement. What they do is, we know there is a problem, there is a dispute, but they does not force the parties to reach an agreement. So they only give a suggestions, they are not giving any force, they are not using their influence. So there is an agreement, and that agreement is not binding unless incorporated into an order made by the court or tribunal. Because the parties reach a mutual consent agreement, parties are more likely to keep their items. So if it is no agreement is being made, if it is not binding unless it is made as an order made by the tribunal court, and when the parties they are mutually acceptable agreement, then they are to go for following the terms and conditions of their conciliation proceedings, and they do and abide by those rules and regulations whatever making it. Now we have to find out the difference. It's very important to know the difference between arbitration and conciliation. Arbitration, it is available only for the existing as well as for the future disputes, but conciliation is only for this dispute. Now this dispute has arisen and we take a measure to settle down the dispute, but arbitration is, it is like a pre-planned or pre-evidence or prejudice which we try to follow in the future as well as the existing disputes. So in arbitration there is no need for a prior agreement in order to restoring the method, but in case of, as I told you, there is a need for a prior agreement for arbitration between the parties is required. Only when they accept that can be done. Then the arbitrator, they are not just merely assisting the parties, but is also actively arbitrating and resolve the dispute by making an arbitral award. So this is the award is the verdict or the solution what has been famed. This is called as an award, degree of award. But in case of, as we know, this or conciliator cannot, they can only help and assist to reach into an amicable settlement. As we know, they cannot pass any order and they don't have the power to pass any order. And in case of arbitration, the pre-agreement in arbitration should always be in writing. But in case of conciliation, we know there is an agreement. Only when both the parties come, they can go for an conciliation. If one party does not turn out, then there is no such things and there is a rejection. So there is no pre-agreement and there is no such binding cases in case of conciliation. Now we will talk about the courts of inquiry. This is section 6. So the appropriate government may constitute a court of inquiry consisting of one or more independent persons. So this court of inquiry is also being constituted by the appropriate government, and they look into matters what are connected or relevant to industrial disputes. So this court consists of 2 or more members and one should be the chairman. Then we have labor code section 7. This labor code is the appropriate government which is being constituted by labor courts. So this this is being constituted by the labor courts in order to adjudicate the industrial disputes. So this industrial dispute should be related to, so what are the cases which can be referred to labor court is when there is a propriety or legality of an order which has been passed by an employer under the standing orders, or an application, or we are trying to interpret the standing order which has been already passed, or try to discharge or dismiss a workman, including a retirement of or grant of relief to workmen wrongfully dismissed. So in order to settle down such things, or any customary concessions or privileges which has been already enjoyed and given to the workman has been without thing which has been withdrawn, in such case the particular things can be referred to the labor codes under section. Then court of inquiry, this is section 6. So this appropriate government, as I told you, they have to give in the official notice that is, there is a constitution of court of inquiry, and what are the matters which has to be dealt in, that has to be specified by the appropriate government. Then this constitute of one independent person or of number of independent persons. So they have to have minimum one person, and in case if there is a need, then the appropriate government may constitute some other more persons, and they are also independent persons. And this court of inquiry has to have 2 or more members, and one of them should be appointed as the chairman. So among the members who are being appointed by the appropriate government, one person should be the chairman. And this court of inquiry, they are acting as a prescribed authority, and they have to have a quorum. So even at the absence, if the chairman is not turning also, there should be some constitution of the quorum, and that quorum is also based on the number of members or representations which are made by the appropriate government, and that differs from. So the service of this chairman will be seized by the government only through the notification. As we know, they are being this court of inquiry is constituted by the official government, and the chairman is also being one among this independent member, and their service is being seized by the order passed by the appropriate government, and the court shall not act until we have a new chairman. So when one chairman is being seized from his services, then another chairman has to be appointed. Until then, the court of inquiry cannot act. Now the authority, who are the authority who are going for investigation of this industrial disputes? So the authority here refers to the constitution of court of inquiry, and this court of inquiry, as we know, it is like also, it is like a board of conciliation only, and they are not a permanent body, and they are constituted whenever there is a need arising. This court of inquiry is based on the need arising, and they are also constituted only when there is a reason for a constitution and there is a dispute. And if the appropriate government thinks, yes, there is a need, and that should be specified in the official gazette through a notification. And this court of inquiry should also go into any inquiry into matters which are connected or relevant to the industrial dispute. So the court of inquiry has got authority only to investigate or inquire any issues or disputes. So that should be an industrial dispute. And under section 6(2) subsection of this particular section 6, the court of inquiry, as I told you, should have at least one or more independent members, and in case if they need, they can have more members based on the appointment and the terms and conditions of the appropriate authority. And this is the duties of the court of inquiry. So this court of inquiry, they have to refer, as I told you, it was always thinking about the industrial disputes alone, and they are focusing on the industrial disputes alone. So that ordinarily they are to settle down and send the report within 6 months from the date of its inquiry. Here this term ordinarily means that is they may extend or shorten the period. So based on the nature of the dispute, the particular period of 6 months can be cut down into a shorter duration, or based on the severity of the industrial dispute, the duration can be lengthened. That is based only on the discretion of the appropriate government. Then the authorities who are there for adjudication of these industrial disputes, and this is a 3-tier structure, and we have to know why this particular adjudicating mechanism is there. And this 3-tier structure, we have a labor court, industrial tribunal, and the national tribunal. So these are the last things which we were seeing in the 7-stage structure at the beginning. So we have the 3-tier structure is with respect to labor court, industrial tribunal, and national tribunal. And this has been introduced from the year 1946, and this Industrial Dispute Act relates to 1947 with lots of amendments. We are seeing this, and this particular jurisdiction of each 3 courts has to be clearly demarcated, so that there not be any confusion between this their jurisdictions. And this main why these courts are there is, as we know, they are only there in order to look into the industrial disputes and to look into the matters which are connected to the industrial disputes. So they have to only adjudicate the matters which are relevant to the industrial disputes, and the matter may differ based on the nature and the subject of the industry. Now we have the works committee, and this works committee, it's very very important. And why this works committee? So any establishments where there is having 100 or more workmen, or they are being employed on any preceding 12 months, then the appropriate government has to give an order. So that order can be a general or a special order to constitute a works committee. So they have to, the employer has to constitute a work committee when the number of employers on any day has crossed 100. This is very very essential quality for appointment of a works committee. And this committee is being a representation of the employers and a workman. So we have employers and workmen who are there in the particular establishment. So this number of representation shall not be less than the number of representations of the employer. That should be very specific. The number of representations which has been made by the number of employer side should be equal to the number of representation made by the workmen. So there is an equal representation from both the sides, and they are chosen in the prescribed form among the workmen engaged in the establishment, and their appointment is done only with the consultation of the trade union. So this is how the trade union they decide, and this is trade union here refers to the registered trade union, and they deal only with the workers problem and day-to-day problems which is arising in the industrial establishment. And this work committee functions. This work committee, as I told you, deals with the day-to-day functioning of this workmen at the shop floor. So they have to look into the health, safety and welfare. So this health, safety and welfare already we have discussed under the Factories Act. If somebody has not seen that, please refer to my prior slides, videos which I have posted in my YouTube. Health measures, safety measures and welfare measures which are being earmarked under the Factories Act. So the health here, the ventilation, lighting, temperature and sanitation facilities, and safety refers to the accident preventions, occupational disease and protective equipments. Welfare relates to restrooms, medical health services and drinking water. And then other than that, they have the administration of welfare and fine funds, then educational recreation activities, like they have health and safety welfare committees, and these committees were made in for example, they have given as Jamshedpur or Carnatic Mill in Madras in 1922. So from that time also we had all these committees are being functioning. Then they also promote thrift and saving activity among their workmen, and whatever decisions are being done that we post. And this works committee they are trying to contribute for the disputes. So they try to settle down the disputes, or they try to prevent the industrial disputes at the grassroots level itself. So as we know, there is a representation from both the parties, that is employer and employee. So when there is any grievances trying to arise, this works committee will try to prevent at the grassroots level also itself. And the main objective is to promote industrial growth, that is through goodwill. Then they try to secure cooperation from employers and employees, and try to provide popular, that is the supervising management of the big undertakings. And they have to provide the basic necessities for the employees are being provided properly. Then they have to ensure there is a cooperation between the private concerns, and this is what they do. And they try to promote measures for securing and preserving any relations between the particular party, and they have to bring in good relations between the employer and employee. And they also endure to compose any difference, that is there is a material in differences of opinion, that also to be eradicated. Then this is the authorities under this act. So works committee, as we have discussed, this works committee as the first committee which is being done by that, and they are coming, if the number of members on the workers are more than 100, then there is a need for constitution of the work committee, and it is also being appointed by the government, and they also look into the specific order And this is a recap of what we saw in works committee. So there should be a representation from both the sides, that is workman and employee, and this there should not be any over representation from both the sides. And they also try to secure the promoting and good relations between the employer and workman, and they have their own limited powers, and they are only instrumental to take into the consultation to settle the disputes, and they don't have any power important. And this respect to missionaries who are there indulged in settlement of industrial disputes. So as we saw the works committee, and this works committee, they are only to strengthen the spirituality of the voluntary settlement. And we also have a joint management councils. These councils are also consisting of equal number both from the employer and the employee sides, and they have to think about three things that is very important: is information sharing, consultation and administrative matters which are relating to the welfare, safety, training, and the formulation of standing orders. So without encroaching on the jurisdictions of the works committee, the standing committee, that is the joint management councils, will help the function